Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1355A, and today's date is August 14th, 2017, and the title of the episode is A New Currency Emerges as the Old Currency Withers Away. Welcome to the transition. Let's get into the economic collapse financial news. Now, what's absolutely amazing is each day that we look at the economic data, of course, the corporate media, the financial pundits, the Fed, they like to tell you how great the statistics are. Please look at the stock market. Look how great it is. But when we drill down and we start looking at the nitty gritty and we see what's occurring, we can see that the economy is losing steam. And when I say the economy is losing steam, I'm not talking about an economy that's been robust, an economy that's been on the mend, that has been recovering. I'm talking about an economy that has been pumped up on stimulus. I'm talking about an economy that was created to make it look like it was recovering. And now all of that they have done in the last 8 or so years is coming to an end. And it is breaking apart like we've never seen before. Now, the Fed is trying to hide certain aspects of it, where they're getting rid of one of their indexes, which shows, and I have to say, it was pretty darn on track with every single recession, and they don't want that out there. They don't want people to see that. So what they usually do is they hide or get rid of it, saying it wasn't really that important, just like the M2 money supply and everything else. So what they try to do is they try to make it seem like that we really don't need this and it really wasn't important. But when we start looking at all the economic indicators and we start looking at what has really been going on, we can see that things, they're not exactly what they seem. Now, the government, the Fed, they want us to believe that everyone is getting a job in the food and services industry. This is where everyone is getting work. This is why the unemployment rate is getting lower and lower and lower, and it looks like we're almost at full employment. But when we start to look at what's really happening, we can see that this is kind of impossible. Now, we did this same thing going back a couple of years ago with retail when they told us that, the unemployment rate fell from 10 to 8 to 7 and so on, and the sales in retail continually dropped. And we said, and we scratched our heads and we said, something's wrong here. Something doesn't make sense. And then we've been seeing what has been happening. We've been seeing that the entire retail market is collapsing on itself. And it has nothing to do with the weather. It has nothing to do with online sales. It has to do with the real economy where people, they just don't have that money to spend anymore. Now, when we look at the restaurant industry, what we're seeing right now is that the restaurant industry is the worst since 2009. Now, households at a lower 80% of income scale, they're completely maxed out right now. And July proved to be a tough month for chain restaurants. Now, this is coming from the latest report, and the foot traffic at chain restaurants fell by 4.7% in July year over year. Same-store sales fell by 2.8%, the 17th month in a row of year-over-year declines, the longest downturn since 2009. And what we're looking at right now is that this is a complete disaster. Now, this was taken from a restaurant industry snapshot by TDN2K, and they looked at 27,000 restaurant units and 155 brands, generating about $67 billion in annual revenue. And they're saying that food sales are down, alcohol sales were way down, but prices are up. So the prices in restaurants, they're moving up. And even though the prices are going up, it's still not making a difference. They're still losing money because the customer base isn't there anymore. It is declining. And we saw this during the Great Recession. We saw exactly the same exact thing. And here we are experiencing the same thing, which tells us that this is another indicator and we are in big trouble. Now remember, credit card debt is way up. People are using this to get by. They're not going out to eat. They're most likely using it in the supermarkets just to buy the food, and they're making things on their own. We see student loans are up. We see automobile loans are up. And what is happening right now is that people are continually losing their jobs. And the jobs that are being produced, well, they're part-time, low-paying jobs, and it is just not working out for the everyday person. Now, Trump at this point, he signed a memo addressing China's laws, policies, practices, and actions, and this is all related to the intellectual property, innovation, and technology. And basically what he's looking into right now, he didn't impose sanctions or anything like that. He wants to know what China has been doing with the U.S. in regards to trade. Now, U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer, well, he's going to examine China's policies, their practices, and their actions when it comes to the transfer of U.S. technology, theft of American intellectual property, and basically looking how this all is occurring right now, because we've had some problems. We've had problems where there are other administrations, the Clintons, where they kind of sold off some of the information to China. And we can see right now that these trade deals that were worked out with the global elite, with the deep state, with the central bank, well, this is not in the best interests for the United States. Now remember what they were trying to do all of this time. They were trying to create a one world type of global government where all the countries were pretty much the same. They needed to bring all the countries on an even playing field, and they needed the salaries to be pretty much even, because this way it didn't matter where you were, and this is what they were trying to do. So right now, Trump is looking into this, and the deep state is a little worried about this. Now, he needs to do this because we need to bring manufacturing back to the United States. And this is all part of the process of doing this, and it's going to hurt. Remember, going through a transition, bringing everything back here to the United States, going through an economic reset, it is not pleasant. And those in power, the deep state, the central banks, the globalists who wanted it completely different, well, they're not going to react very friendly to this. They don't want this to happen. Now, there are certain corporations that are going to be affected by this. Apple, remember, they're getting a lot of their phones and other technology. They're being built in China. We have many other corporations that moved everything out of the United States over to there. And we can see that a lot of merchandise is imported from China, and it's going to affect Walmart. So again, this is not going to be an easy process as we go through this. Now, of course, China does not like this whatsoever. You know, they're saying they're going to retaliate. And remember, once again, China does hold all the cards. They have the manufacturing. The United States doesn't. They can hurt our economy quite a bit. We are a service economy. We consume. We really don't produce that much anymore. And as we go through this year and throughout next year, the economy is deteriorating at an accelerated pace. And what is happening right now, from all the indicators that we've been looking at, it's getting worse and worse. And the clock is ticking down. And we can see that parts of the transition, well, they've already started. We're going to discuss that in a little bit. But when we look at the economy right now, we can see that the economy, well, we're in a recession. Now, I know the central bank, I know the government, they're not out there saying that we're in a recession. The corporate media is not out there saying we're in a recession. But when we start to look at the specifics of the economy, they equal a recession. They match up to everything that is the definition of a recession. And actually, some parts are even a lot worse than the Great Recession. Now, when we look at this, we can see the gross domestic product, the GDP, it has declined for 2 or more quarters. And this is a sign of a recession. And remember, going back to 2008, 2009, this is the weakest recovery that we've ever seen. And it's not a recovery. It's an illusion that has been built up on stimulus. Now, when we look at some of the data, like auto, light truck sales, well, they're either down or off a cliff. When we look at restaurant dining, well, we discussed that. Sales are down. When we look at federal tax receipts, state tax receipts, they are down. When we look at retail sales, they're flat, stagnant, or down, depending on the sector. When we look at rents in high rent regions, they're starting to soften. Consumer debt hitting new highs. We've seen this right before the crash of 2008. Corporate profits stripped or basically manipulated to make it look like they're still profitable, but they are down. And when you look at all this data, when we look at all the information, we can see that this information, the indicators that we're looking at, well, they all point to a recession. Now, those who study recessions know that employment often tops out just before the economy rolls over into a recession. And you have to remember, what happens during the end game, during the period where the system is crashing? Now, if households can't make interest payments on any type of new debt because the interest rates are too high, what does the central bank do? Well, in an economy that is failing, they offer 0% loans. If corporations need to roll over debt, what is the solution? Well, the companies sell near zero yield bonds to different investors. If households can no longer afford to buy homes, what does the central bank do during this period of time? What's their solution? It's for federal agencies such as the FHA to offer near zero down payment mortgages and guarantee private lenders against any loss. When these agencies get into trouble due to the out-of-control costs of encouraging subprime borrowers, what is the solution? Well, the solution is for the taxpayers to fund these institutions with a bailout or a bail-in. And that is the point we're at right now, because we've already seen the first part. Here we are at the second part. And right now, what are we seeing? We are seeing that full-time jobs, well, they're non-existent right now. People are taking on part-time jobs. Profits are falling. Revenue is falling. Sales are falling. And if consumers aren't spending, they're not borrowing anymore, what happens? The system starts to fall apart. And this is what we're seeing right now. If we look at manufacturing, what are we seeing? We're seeing that we're not producing anything anymore. Everything has been outsourced out of this country. Wealth and income can only be generated in the real world by increases in productivity. Unfortunately, the recovery narrative, productivity is tanking. This is not a good sign of a strong economy. This is an economy that has already entered recession. This is an economy that is already failing. Now, what's very interesting when we talk about tax receipts, we talk about state tax receipts, and we're noticing that they're declining. But the IRS came out, and the IRS saw a 40% surge in returns that owe tax penalties between 2010 and 2015. And moving forward, they're noticing that people aren't paying their quarterly taxes. Now, we need to remember what is happening in this economy. Now, of course, they're out there saying that, well, they're making mistakes on their taxes. They're not calculating it right. Now, those individuals who are contractors or those people who are working on, 1099s and things like that, they have to pay quarterly taxes. And what happens is many of these individuals who've taken on these type of jobs because they can't find a real full-time job, they need this money to survive. And it's very difficult for them to put some aside. So what I believe is happening right now is that this entire economy, and I know they have their own statistics where they're looking at, the employment, we're at full employment, but we know a lot of this is part-time, and we know that a lot of corporations, they got rid of their full-time employee where they have pensions, health insurance, and they've taken on contractors from 2010 to the present day. These contractors, they're easy to get rid of because there's no connection between the corporation and this contractor. They don't have to worry about explaining why they have to lay them off and things like that. They also can pay them without taking out taxes and things like that. They just give them the funds. And these people then have to go and say, okay, I have to pay my quarterly taxes. But a lot of these individuals are saying, okay, I have to pay for my health insurance, I have to pay for my retirement, and I have to pay to live. And I'm paying all of this out of the funds that I'm receiving, which means I need this to live on, and this is why I can give a little bit to the quarterly taxes. And I'd rather take the penalty, and hopefully next year will be better. And this is what's happening right now in this economy. And this is why the IRS is seeing this. Now, they're going to make up a lot of excuses that there's a lot of people calculating their taxes wrong. Really, they're calculating their taxes wrong. Most of these individuals are using the tax software, or they're going to an accountant or someone else because the tax laws are so ridiculous. Unless you just have a basic type of return, most of the people are doing this today. So the idea that they're miscalculating and this many people are miscalculating seems a little suspicious. It's almost like, well, retail's not doing well because we had snow in the Northeast. Retail's not doing well because we had some rain. I mean, these are the excuses that the government officials, the central banks all use. Now, I wanted to talk about how we are in the middle of the transition, how we're transitioning from one currency to another. Now, a lot of people, they don't really see this right now, and they're just brushing it off like it's no big deal, like this is not really happening. A lot of people have no clue that is happening. Just like the internet, when that was born, no one really knew what was going on. People didn't understand why people were buying domain names like Macy's.com or Sears.com or JCPenney.com or Kmart.com, and a lot of people were like, oh, why are they buying those names, for $4, $5, $10? They didn't understand it. They had no clue that was even being done at that time. These individuals realized that the internet was going to be the future. The internet was going to be huge, and they wanted to start purchasing these names and holding on to them because they knew later on that these companies would come around and say, you know something, I want that domain name. The same thing is happening right now. We're going through this major transition now. A lot of people, I'm going to say a very small percentage of people, understand what we're going through right now. And we see a lot of countries where they're bypassing the dollar completely. China, Russia, Iran, Syria. And there's going to be many more countries that are going to say, you know something, I really don't need to use the dollar. Now, this is not something that's going to happen, tomorrow. But over time, it's going to continually happen. We're already seeing it in Venezuela, where the Venezuelan people, they're saying, you know something? The currency in Venezuela is declining. We see major inflation, and they are pouring into cryptocurrency. And we're going to see a lot of this here in the United States and around the world. Now, those individuals, those government officials and the central bankers, they realize what is happening. This is why they're creating all these bills. Like, we could see there's this new foreign sanctions bill, HR 336451, where they're going to go after those individuals that are using cryptocurrency. Now, of course, they're saying we're going after these individuals to combat terrorism, and we're, looking into this. We're looking at the internet-based cybercrime or any other threat that it might have to do with cryptocurrency. Now, the reason why they are doing this is because they're trying to figure out a way on how they can stop this. Now, once again, this is going to be very difficult. Now, I know, like they said, we'll go after Coinbase and we'll go after that platform because they hold a lot of people's cryptocurrency. Well, that is absolutely ridiculous because all people have to do is move that off of Coinbase and move it into a private wallet. Guess what? They can't touch it then. Yes, they can go to a certain corporation and say, we're locking it down, we're going to put restrictions or whatever they're going to do. But there are plenty other exchanges around the world that they have no control over. Now, they're trying to control it, but it's going to be very, very difficult. The reason why they're doing this is because we are in the middle of a transition. Now, it doesn't mean it's all set in stone. It doesn't mean that this is what it's going to be. We're in the beginning stages of this transition where people are saying, you know something, I really don't need the dollar. It doesn't give me a benefit, or I have greater freedom with a cryptocurrency. And this is what we are seeing right now. Does this mean gold and silver is not going to be worth anything? Absolutely not. Actually, this is going to benefit gold and silver, because as we move away from the dollar, as the dollar being priced out for, everything, we're going to get the true value of gold and silver when we move over to a new currency. Now, am I saying that Bitcoin's going to be it? Is it going to be Litecoin? Is it going to be Dash? Is it going to be Ethereum? Well, we don't know just yet. We're at the beginning stages. Just like we didn't know exactly what the internet was going to be. I mean, before we had to go through AOL or Prodigy or some other type of gateway. Now everyone can go directly through their ISP provider, and you don't have to worry about that. You don't have to pay that type of monthly fee. Yes, you're still paying for your connection, but you don't have to pay for the company to go through that. You don't have to get your email through that anymore. So we can see that we are heading down this path, and we are basically in the beginning stages of a transition period of a new currency system. This doesn't mean that this is what it's going to be, but people are looking at this and people are diving into it because they realize it gives them freedom. It separates them from the central banking system. And it's not just here in the US, it's around the world. And you'll know we're heading in the right direction because you'll see governments around the world trying to crack down on this. You'll see governments of the world trying to gain control of this. And I'm talking about the governments, central banks intertwined. You will see this happen. Just like now, you're going to see all these different bills where they're going to say, due to national security, due to terrorism, due to this, they're going to push this as hard as they possibly can because they need to gain control. But the thing is, they can't control it. It is out of their reach, and they are not going to like this. And this is the beginning stages. What it will look like later on, we don't know. Think about the internet as it was being born. Everyone used Yahoo. Google was in the background. And then all of a sudden, Google was the search engine, and Yahoo, well, they're trying to survive right now. And look how the internet has completely changed everything, where everything goes through the internet. Everything that you want to do, you can buy gold and silver through the internet. You can go onto the internet and use cryptocurrencies. You can buy and sell all your products. There's so many things that are happening right now. The same thing is happening with this transition. And this transition needs to be there because it's going to help with the entire destruction of the old system and help with the birth of the new system. And this is why we're at the very beginning stages of this. And as we move forward, it will gain momentum. More people will know about it, and people will start to realize, something? We don't need the dollar. We don't need any of this. And hopefully it grows large enough where they say, something? We don't need the SDR. We don't even need the central banks. We don't even need the banking system. So what you need to do is you need to be ready, prepared. You need to have some cryptocurrency. You need to have some silver. I would say mostly silver. If you like gold, get gold. I'd say invest more in silver because once the cryptocurrencies, they break out and things start to move, well, the dollar, the silver market, the gold market, they're going to be basically unhooked from the dollar, and the real value of these metals will increase along with the cryptocurrency. And this is what we're going to be seeing as we move forward. So get prepared, get ready. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.